As I made my way through the prison, I tried to ignore the inmates calling out to me.
Hey, come over here. Hey, what's your name? Got a cigarette, mate?
I made sure I didn't make eye contact with any of them. It was a scary place to be, so I got through there as quickly as possible. But before I continue, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you sure don't want to miss out on any more crazy stories. I cleaned up the prison, mopped the floors, and emptied all the trash cans. Finally, it was time to go home. The minute I walked into my house, I ripped the mustache off my face and jumped into the shower. You're probably wondering how I got into this peculiar situation, aren't you? Well, let me start from the beginning, to where it all began. When I was at school, I was just your typical, normal, boring schoolboy. I didn't stand out in a crowd. In fact, most people had no idea I even existed. I was fine with it being like that. I didn't care if anyone knew who I was. But one day, that all changed. The day started off just like any other. But when we got to class, I noticed there was a new girl sitting at one of the desks. As soon as I set eyes on her, I fell for her. All of a sudden, I wanted to be noticed. I didn't want her to get snapped up by one of the other boys before I had a chance to ask her out. I was just wondering how on earth I was going to pluck up the courage to speak to her when the teacher came in and saved my life.
Mark, this is Lisa. She's new here. Can you partner up with her for the science experiment today, please?
I couldn't believe my luck. Yeah, sure. I sat down next to Lisa. Hi. She smiled at me.
Hi.
From that moment on, we hit it off. As we worked together on the science experiment, I couldn't help but stare at her. She is absolutely beautiful. I've never met anyone like her before. The more time I spent with her, the more I felt that we were meant for each other. I don't really know how to describe it, but you know when you meet someone and you instantly click? It was like that. I felt really strongly that she was the one for me. I decided to take a chance, and at the end of the day, I asked her out on a date.
Yes, sure. That would be great.
Brilliant. I was so happy. I couldn't believe that she had said yes. We started dating and everything was going really well, apart from one thing. She was really reserved and didn't want me to meet her parents. Every time I suggested going to her house, she made up some excuse.
It's easier if I come to your house.
Okay, sure. But you will introduce me to your parents one day, won't you?
Yes, of course. It's just that they are really busy at the moment.
Even though I was a bit curious as to why she didn't invite me to her house, I decided to let it go. After all, we were getting along so well. Why rock the boat? But then one day, things went horribly wrong. I went to school, but Lisa was nowhere to be seen. I wasn't worried at first, as I thought she was probably sick or something. But day after day went by and nobody had heard from Lisa. Eventually, the school called the police and told them that they hadn't heard from Lisa or her parents. They asked them to go out to Lisa's house to check on her. What they discovered came as a big shock. It turns out that Lisa had been living there all alone. She had even faked her parents' identities. Who is she? I was so upset that my girlfriend had been lying to me, and now I had no idea even where she was. I sat in my room crying and feeling sorry for myself. I wasn't really taking much notice of what was on the TV, but suddenly I saw a familiar face. It was Lisa. The newsreader was talking about a bank robbery and was showing a photo of the thief being arrested.
The police arrested this girl for stealing $1 billion. She's now being held in jail. Unfortunately, the police have not been able to recover the stolen money.
I listened to the rest of the story.
She is being held at the Highland prison, where almost all of the inmates are billionaires.
I couldn't believe it. I was so upset. It seems like I didn't even know her. I could never imagine her committing a robbery. I knew that I needed some answers. The only way I could find out who she really is to get close to her. Maybe I should commit a crime and get arrested too. But no, that won't work because they separate the boys from the girls in the prison. So what am I going to do? I thought and thought about it. Finally, I knew the answer. I will have to try and get a job at the prison. Maybe they need a janitor or something. I sent a resume to the prison and waited to see if I was lucky. The following day, I got an email asking me to go in for an interview. I put on a fake mustache to make myself look older and went to the prison.
Do you have much experience as a janitor?
Oh, yes, I've done the job for nearly 5 years.
Excellent, excellent. You can start on Monday.
As I made my way through the prison, I tried to ignore the inmates calling out to me.
Hey, come over here. Hey, what's your name? Got a cigarette, mate?
I made sure I didn't make eye contact with any of them. It was a scary place to be, so I got through there as quickly as possible. I cleaned up the prison, mopped the floors, and emptied all the trash cans. finally it was time to go home. The minute I walked into my house, I ripped the mustache off my face and jumped into the shower. The following day, when I got to the prison, I went straight to Lisa's cell. I stood outside the door and whispered, "Lisa, Lisa."
Mark?
"Don't worry, I'm here to help you.
But how?
I'm going to help you escape."
Really? You would do that for me?
"Yes, of course. I would do anything for you.
Okay.
Be ready tomorrow morning at this time. I'll be coming to get you." The following morning, when I arrived at the prison, I took the big cart that held all the towels and emptied the towels out of it. I wheeled it along to Lisa's cell and opened the door. "Quick, jump in here." Lisa hopped into the cart and I closed the lid. The guard hardly gave me a second glance as I wheeled the towel cart past him and out of the prison. Once we were safely out of the prison gates, I opened the lid of the cart and Lisa jumped out. "Come on, you can come and hide out at my house."
Thank you, Mark. I'm so grateful.
When we got to my house, Lisa told me to sit down.
I want to explain everything to you.
"It's okay, you don't have to. I love you, whatever you've done."
Look, it's true. I did rob the bank. But I did it for a reason. You see, my parents have been kidnapped by some really bad people. They told me I had to give them $1 billion to get my parents back. They told me not to tell the police or my parents would get hurt. That's why I robbed the bank.
So did you pay them the money?
No, I got arrested before I had the chance.
So where's the $1 billion now?
I buried it in the park. I was going to wait until the police stopped looking for the bank robbers, and then I was going to go back and dig it up.
So where are your parents now?
I don't know. The kidnappers told me they wouldn't release them until I gave them the money.
So we'll just have to go and dig up the money then.
Are you sure you want to get involved? I don't want you to risk getting in trouble for helping me.
I told you before, I would do anything for you. I love you.
Okay, so we will wait until it's dark and go to the park.
So that night at about 11 p.m., the two of us set off to the park, carrying a big spade each. Where did you bury the money?
Over there, by that big tree.
We walked over to the spot where the money was buried and started digging. It was pitch black and difficult to see what we were doing. But we worked and worked until eventually I felt my spade hit something hard. I think I found it. We scraped the earth from around the box.
Yes, that's it.
I reached into the hole and pulled the box out. Lisa opened it up. At the same moment, the moon came from behind a cloud and lit the box up. I had never seen so much money in my life before. The box was full of $100 bills. Wow, that sure is a lot of money.
Quick, let's get the hole filled back in and get out of here.
Once the hole was filled back up, we picked up the box and made our way back to my house. As soon as we arrived, Lisa took out her phone and called a number.
I have your money. Okay. Yes, I understand.
What did they say?
They told me to meet them tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Once they have the money, then they will release my parents.
Okay, so where are we meeting them?
No, they said that I must go alone.
I'm not letting you go by yourself. It might be dangerous.
You have to. If they see you with me, they might think it's a setup. I can't risk them hurting my parents.
Okay, but be careful, won't you?
Of course I will.
The following evening, I waited at home, nervously watching the clock. When the time showed 9 p.m., my stomach filled with butterflies. Please don't let anything happen to her. I'll never forgive myself. But I needn't have worried. Less than 30 minutes later, Lisa came knocking at my door. What happened? Did they release your parents?
Yes, everything is fine. I gave them the money and 5 minutes later they dropped my parents off.
Oh, thank God. They didn't hurt you, did they?
No, it's all over now. We can go back to our normal lives again.
I smiled at Lisa. That's just what I wanted to hear. But unfortunately, my good mood didn't last very long. Just as we were beginning to relax and think it had all turned out okay, there was a loud banging on my front door. I looked at Lisa. Who can that be at this time of night?
You'd better go and see.
I went and opened the door. Standing there were 4 policemen.
Mark,
Yes?
you are under arrest for helping rob a bank.
I stood there staring at them in shock. Part of me wanted to deny everything, but I also wanted to protect Lisa. I knew that they had no idea that Lisa was in my house. If I went with them, then Lisa would be able to escape. Okay, I'll just get my coat and come down to the station with you.
No!
I spun around and saw Lisa standing behind me. What are you doing?
I'm not going to let you take the blame for this, Mark. Officer, I am Lisa. I am the one that committed the robbery. Mark had nothing to do with it.
The officer looked at the two of us, a puzzled look on his face.
Is that true, Mark? Are you innocent?
Yes, sir, it's true.
But why didn't you say so?
Because I was trying to protect the girl I love. I would do anything for her. But unfortunately, I couldn't serve Lisa's time for her. The police arrested her and sent her back to prison. But there was one thing I could do. I could carry on working as the janitor. At least that way I would be able to spend time with Lisa. So I worked at the prison day in and day out, mopping floors and clearing up the trash. Yes, I had to put up with all the inmates calling at me, but it was worth it to get to spend a few minutes a day whispering to Lisa from outside her cell. I love you, Lisa.
I love you too, Mark.
Only one more year to go, then you will be out of here.
I can't wait. I dream about that day.
So do I. You might think I'm crazy for devoting my life to making Lisa happy, but I know she's worth it. And one thing more that I'm certain of, as soon as she gets out of prison, I'm going to ask her to marry me.